Sawadika, I am Kusuma Yothasmut and this is Thailand Today. Last time, the editor of Real Wealth Report and gold and silver trader, Mr. Larry Anderson, who is also contributor to the daily email newspaper Money and Markets, had sat down with Thailand Today and discussed the world's gold situations in general. We have him back today as we would like him to give us some thoughts about gold issue in Thailand. So having living in Thailand for years, along with his expertise in gold investments, Mr. Edelson have known about Thailand better than other foreign financial analysts. His perspectives might be critical, especially for new gold investors. He's already here. Let us welcome him, Mr. Larry Anderson.
Nations like Venezuela know that blood, war, and conquest often flow like molten gold. In 1998, when Hugo Chavez was first elected president of Venezuela, he discovered that Venezuela's gold, once again, was in European hands, courtesy of the world's financial institutions. Journalist Eva Gollinger has written about the country's finances for years. Yet while the gold is gone, the Bank of England or Fort Knox, for example, can still claim to own the gold because it's on their books as rented, not sold. It's a dangerous game. Gold has always been seen as the canary in the mine, a barometer measuring the world's economy.
We are back with Kun Larry Edelson, a gold and precious metal expert and editor of Real Wealth Report and gold and silver trader. So tell me about this, this is on Panorama, anybody can buy it to know more about yourself. Why did they say that to you?
Well, I don't know. I guess because I've been trading gold for 38 years. And now I reside in Thailand and have lived in Thailand full-time for 8 years now, I guess, and been traveling here for 12 years since. And I'm very active in the gold market. That's my specialty.
So 2014 was a good year for most markets?
Yes.
Is it so?
Yes.
So how about coming year?
Well, Thailand did as far as Thailand's economy and markets, did very, very well. Ironically, despite all the negative comments due to the situation that Thailand went through last year. And you know, it's interesting to point out that bad news is sometimes good news for investors. January of last year, I was on The Nation and I was asked what I thought about the Thai stock market. I was on a show with 3 other analysts, and nobody would touch the Thai stock market at the time because Thailand was going through a political crisis. I said buy the Thai set because it had already, and it was trading at 1,240 I think at the time. Thailand had already had its slowdown. I'm not bragging, but the Thai set is, you know, now almost 1,600. So it goes to show you that, you know, you have to be a little bit of a contrarian. When everything looks bad, usually that's the time to buy, and when everything looks so good, usually that's the time to sell. Right now, I think Thailand is doing just fine. And with the advent of ASEAN and AEC later this year, I think Thailand is really truly going to shine, because the ASEAN and AEC community is really a wonderful economic community that is forming for Southeast Asia. And of course, Thailand is really at the center of it all. So I think that's very, very positive for Thailand. So I do expect Thailand's economy to continue to do well and its markets to continue to do well.
Last time we talked about China. So, but we also heard that the recession is happening in China also. Is that going to do any effect on the global recession also?
I think it's already factored in. You have to bear in mind a recession in China. China was growing 8, 9, 10% per year. Now it's growing 7.2%. Yes, it's slowed down a little bit. but 7.2% is still very, very good growth compared to negative growth in Europe and basically 2% growth in the United States. So I'm not really worried about China. I think most people misunderstand China. For example, you hear a lot of Wall Street analysts talking about ghost buildings in China, ghost cities in China. Well, you have to understand China's
huge
mentality. It's huge. I remember the first time I went to Beijing in 1998. They had just built the expressway from the airport to downtown Beijing, and it was 6 lanes on each side, and it was empty. And I said to myself as I was taking the taxi downtown, wow, this is really overbuilding. But then when I went 2 years later, it was bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Yes.
Beijing and the Chinese plan for the future, and they have 1.4 billion people. So they don't mind building something big to get it right the first time because they know it will be filled up. Unlike, for example, in my home country where they build highways 2 lanes and then 3 years later they have to add another lane and another lane and another lane. They don't plan like China plans for the future. So I don't see the problems that most other analysts see in China. Do they have bad debt? Yes. Okay. But it's a communist closed economy. Bad debt in a communist system means you take money from this pocket to pay the bad debt in this pocket. It's the same pair of pants. So it's very different from Western economies still. And just the demand of 1.4 billion people is going to continue. You can't suppress 1.4 billion people and their wants to have a better life for themselves and their children. So I don't see the problems in China, and the same really applies to the rest of Asia as well. Asia has a long way to go in terms of growth.
Let's touch about China a bit more, because since you said the 1.4 billion people wanted to have a happy life. So do they, at the moment, in average, people are well off, or just still into only one?
They're getting wealthier each year, yes. Are they happy with the Chinese government? Yes. A recent poll about 4 months ago, the most recent one that I saw, showed that 80% of Chinese are very happy with their country and very happy with their government. As opposed to the United States, where 30% are happy and 70% are unhappy.
Really?
Yes.
What do they? We just look like they're in heaven, actually. American people like, ah.
Well, they're a little bit spoiled, to be honest with you, so when things aren't going well, they're very unhappy. The U.S. has some problems. Every country has its own unique set of problems. What makes the difference is how it's handled by its leaders and by its people.
Last time we talked about the recession, the major turmoil in the European currencies. So in euro. So how about Swiss franc? Is there because many people are using that, and what is causing it?
Well, the Swiss government was worried about competing with the euro last year, so they pegged their currency to the euro. And as the euro fell, it became too painful for the Swiss, because the Swiss franc, and the Swiss National Bank was incurring tremendous losses on its balance sheet. So just in the last week, we saw the Swiss abandon the peg to the euro. They should never have done it in the first place. Fortunately, they were smart enough to abandon the peg to the euro, and the Swiss franc immediately rose some 30% in value. That was disastrous for a lot of investors that were betting on a lower Swiss franc. It's going to hurt Swiss exporters, but in the long run, it'll be better for Switzerland because the euro is a dying currency, and you don't want to hitch your wagon to a dying currency.
They can anytime going back for not using into this thing, right? like the British and the franc, the Swiss. Still, they are not own it. They are not moving. They are not changing to euro, right?
They're not connecting to the euro. Yeah.
So at any time they can come back to their own stance.
Well, they did go back to their own currency. And delinked it from the euro, which was a smart move. They should never have linked it to the euro to begin with. The euro has got a lot of problems. It's just too many problems to even discuss. I mean, it's a list a mile long.
You were saying about the soaring of the dollars, last time. So is that what will that do for the global economy, to the Asian economy, and in particular? Can you once again?
The dollar is soaring largely not because the dollar and the U.S. economy is so healthy. It's soaring largely because of two reasons. One, the euro is falling so much. So you have a lot of investors that want to get out of the euro and into a stronger currency. And that by default is the dollar, because the dollar is the world's reserve currency still. The second reason is all the geopolitical problems we're seeing in the world. Russia at odds with the United States, Middle East problems, terrorism, ISIS, and its brutality, Boko Haram in Nigeria. All these things are leading investors with money to exit their currencies and go to safer territory, if you will, which is, again, the US dollar. So those two reasons are pushing the dollar up.
The ASEAN and ASEAN business has been long, like many years back. They've been discussing, when the time coming, still postpone a bit. So is that have to do something impact? It's going to be good for Southeast Asia and Thailand as a whole?
I think it's going to be very good. Now, it officially starts at the end of this year, and I think it's going to be very good because the ASEAN countries represent a very important part of the global economy. Their GDP total is about 700 or 800 billion right now, almost $1 trillion. That's a significant number. And you have 10 nations that have talented people, a lot of natural resources, in general, very good education system, and they're part of Asia in general, when you include China and India, which is part of the rise of Asia, as Europe and the United States are having serious structural problems. So I think it's very, very good, and they've also put together a platform for ASEAN and AEC that is based on free flow of labor, reducing tariffs for trade, English is the official language, which I think is a good idea, and they avoided the #1 mistake of trying to implement a single currency like Europe did. The problem with ASEAN that I see, along with my colleagues, is that, as you just said, it's been going on for years, and it's happening up here with a lot of lawyers, politicians, and academics, and that's all fine because that's needed. But no one has yet really brought it down to the people.
Yes.
What does it mean for the average businessman or businesswoman for their small business? What does it mean if you have a successful business in Bangkok and you want to franchise it to Malaysia or to Singapore? What does it mean? Nobody's really doing that, and my colleagues and I will be doing a seminar in June 25th and June 26th at the Dusit Thani, exactly for that purpose, especially with Thailand being the chair in the heart of Thailand, the chair for 2015 and the heart of Thailand really on an ongoing basis. We want the people of Thailand to know what it means for them. Can I now go work in Kuala Lumpur freely?
Yes.
I own a hair salon. It's successful. I want to open in Singapore. How do I do that? What does AEC and ASEAN mean for me? That is the last thing that needs to be done to make it successful. And my colleagues and I will be working on that in June of this year, where we have a seminar again at the Dusit Thani, where we will have several successful entrepreneurs and other people from the ASEAN AEC community talk to the people, but not like academics. Tell the people, this is what it means for you. So I'm very proud of that, and it's a very exciting project to be involved in.
So when you talk about this, that I really, whatever the concern, maybe the biggest concern of the Asian investors, you see, and so what should they do with the Asian, what ASEAN this thing? Asian, actually not ASEAN only, that, but the Asian as a whole. What is the biggest concern of them?
Well, first and foremost, I would be very proud of Asia. I would be very proud of the ASEAN and AEC community. I'd be very proud to be a Thai. Asian economies are doing just fine. I would continue to look at investment opportunities at home more so than abroad, because Europe is having so many problems, the United States has a lot of problems. Right here at home, there's tremendous opportunities. And there's nothing like investing in your home economy, in your home country. And ASEAN's going to allow that to free up, you know, in terms of broadening the community. So I would be very optimistic. I am very optimistic about Asian economies. And I think most Asian investors should look at their home countries for opportunities.
I think you are one of the very unique American nationality to think, are you American? But
yes.
So to think, man, good, a very good side to Thai and also ASEAN to prosperity. And so I do hope also bring back to, you know, to this reality for this matter. So even if so, but the business people, when normally they do something, surely they look for interest rates, you see. So is this still so low at the moment? So what do you think that investors should yield for?
Well, interest rates are going to be low for some time. They might start going up slowly towards the second half of 2015. But you're right. Low interest rates are good in the sense that you can borrow at a low rate. But borrowing is more than a low rate. If you're going to borrow, you have to make sure you're making a good investment with those borrowed monies, and that you also don't have too much currency exposure. If you're borrowing heavily in dollars and interest rates start to go up and the dollar continues to go up, then you have a problem. But for investment opportunities, I would really look at, again, the Thai stock market is doing very well. There'll be some pullbacks, but over the long term, it's headed much higher, in my opinion. I would look at the, ASEAN community for opportunities, for mergers and acquisitions if you're a business person, looking to expand. If you're a successful Thai business person, you want to expand your business to Malaysia or Indonesia or Singapore, it's going to be a great opportunity to do so. I would not look really at Europe and the United States for investment, not now. Maybe in a few years, but not now. So I would concentrate on looking at home. For the average investor, I would stay away from European sovereign bonds, bond markets, and U.S. bond markets. I would consider some investment in U.S. stocks because they will continue to do well over the long term. And I would look at gold. As soon as it, the next big decline, you want to be a buyer of gold.
You are international to acceptance, recognitions of the world, worldwide. But can you give a small, what's it called? I don't want to suggest a thought, a general thought about saving habit. Oh. About the Thai people, especially disciplinary in spend money.
Savings should always be number one. I tend to overlook that when I'm in Asia because Asians in general, Thais too, are big savers compared to Americans or Europeans. But yes, savings should always be your number one goal. Most of your money should be simple savings.
Needed because we normally don't, and get into trouble for that. So we have such a very unique character in, knowing about how to make use of money and how to save the money. You have to listen to Kun Larry Anderson. So before we leave, what are the tips of news investors? Can you give some tips to the new investors? What do you do? Yes.
New investors. I would look at the Thai stock market. I would buy pullbacks in the Thai stock market, large Thai companies, successful companies, as opposed to speculative types of Thai companies. And I would look again at gold. I think is very good investment on a long-term basis. Once it gets back down to somewhere below 18,000 per baht gold, Thai baht, because gold is going to shine again. It's had 3 years of lower prices. That's just a correction in a long-term bull market. Gold will do very well over the long term.
So should buy or should sell now?
If you have gold, it's okay now. Keep it. Yes. Yes. The time to sell was 3 years ago when it was around 21,000.
Oh.
But right now you can keep it and look to add more as the price falls a little bit.
It was 400 baht 20 years back.
Yes.
Now it's
I know. Yeah. Back in 2003, 2004.
When talk about gold, since I have opportunity to talk to you, old gold better than new gold? Old means years long that you've been keeping like 50 years?
Yeah.
The quality should be better or the same?
No.
All the same? It has to be the same.
Gold you bought, Thai baht gold, Thai baht gold from 50 years ago is Thai baht gold today. As long as you're buying from a reputable dealer, you have to be careful today because there are dealers all over the world that are selling gold that's been cheapened somehow. But as long as you're buying from a reputable dealer, gold is gold.
So, if you want to know more about what's going on in gold, investment and all that, do you have this on that? Can you talk about this? Can you talk more about this on the upcoming?
Yes, it's our Southeast Asian Economic Forum, June 25th and 26th at the Dusit Thani in Bangkok. We'll have several guests from the ASEAN and AEC experts to talk about what it means, not for each other, but what it means for the people of Thailand. And myself, I'll be speaking. We'll have booths outside of business people and businesses that will also help investors understand what it's going to mean for the average businessman and businesswoman. So again, it's something I'm very proud of. We're very excited to be holding it.
So every now and then you have this, or this is?
This is the first one.
The first time. Oh, yeah. It seems I have seen here too, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad also going to be here.
Yes.
You see, and so quite a reputable person, keynote speakers like Megawati, sir.
Yes, Megawati.
What on topic she's going to talk about?
ASEAN and what it means for the global economy.
And Kunkorn, surely. And about Dr. Mahathir, what he's going to speak about?
They're all going to speak about ASEAN, but they're going to be speaking of it from a different point of view, what it means for the average Thai citizen, the average Thai business person. We're going to bring it down to the people because, as I said before, it's happening up here, and people of Thailand really don't know what it means for them. So we want to make sure that there's a connection and we close that gap between what's happening up here and what's happening down here.
So in time of uncertainty and political crisis, gold seems more stable in value compared to other commodities. Nevertheless, please allow yourself to learn more about what options are best for your money and suit to your desire. Thailand Today would like to thank Kun Larry Anderson once again for sharing your insight and thought here. So thank you very much for watching. So Thailand Today, come back to you next time. So we all both will say goodbye to the audience together. Sawadee.
Sawadee krab.